of the Limitless. Satoru Gojo is the first sorcerer to be born with both the Limitless and the Six Eyes in the last 400 years. Limitless gives Gojo 6 of the most broken techniques in Jujutsu Kaisen. The first one is Infinity, which is the neutral state of Limitless. Infinity is essentially the power to stop, or in other words, it's the defensive use of Limitless. It is the convergence of an unending series. Anything that tries to get closer to Gojo slows down and will never reach him. This is because Infinity divides the finite space between Gojo and his opponent infinitely. In mathematics, no matter how many times you divide a number, it will never be reduced to 0. The Limitless brings this concept into reality, as anything that attempts to penetrate this infinitely divided space will slow down to the point of appearing to stop completely. However, this doesn't mean Gojo is untouchable, as there are 3 ways to nullify Infinity. The first one is by casting a domain expansion against him. The second way is to use domain amplification, which is an anti-domain technique. And the last way is by using a curse tool that can cancel out curse techniques, like the inverted spear of heaven and the black rope. The last thing I want to mention is that Infinity can also be used offensively. As we saw in Shibuya, Gojo strengthened the output of Infinity to crush Hanami, and in his fight against Sukuna, he used Infinity to launch a building at the King of Curses. The next technique is Blue, or the power to attract. It amplifies Limitless to bring the concept of negative distance to reality. By creating a negative distance, Gojo forces the surrounding space to correct itself and fill in the negative space. This creates a strong force of attraction, similar to a powerful magnet. Blue also has a maximum output version, which is a highly amplified version of Blue unleashed when it's been charged to its full power, to achieve maximum cursed energy output. This produces a gigantic field of attraction capable of clearing out an entire area like a black hole. Gojo can also achieve high-speed movements across short distances using Blue by compressing the space between him and his opponent. This made Gojo the fastest sorcerer in his era. And finally, Gojo can use Blue to make his attacks even more powerful, like he did against Sukuna before landing a punch on him. Next, we have Red, which is the exact opposite of Blue, as it is the power to repel. Red is extremely difficult to pull off, as it requires double the cursed energy of Blue, and it also requires the user to know how to use reverse curse technique. When Red is released, the explosive output is massive, as it creates a gigantic shockwave that blows everything away. Another powerful technique of Limitless is Hollow Purple. It is the fusion of both red and blue to produce an imaginary mass, capable of destroying nearly anything it collides with. If left unrestricted, it can even damage Gojo himself. It is such a rare ability that even within the Gojo clan, there are only few people who know this move even exists. Another unique thing about Limitless is that it gives Gojo the ability of long-distance teleportation. This is achieved by compressing the space between Gojo's location and his destination. He can also teleport other people with himself, like he did with Yuji, and even without himself, like he did for Toge and Panda. The last and most powerful technique in Limitless's arsenal is Gojo's domain expansion, Infinite Void. This domain brings Gojo and his target inside Limitless itself. It forces an endless stream of information into his target's brain, overwhelming them to the point where they're completely immobilized. This leaves the opponent open to an easy attack from Gojo as they stand. Only Gojo and anyone he touches are immune to the effects of Infinite Void. Gojo can also cast his domain for 0.2 seconds like he did in Shibuya. And with all of that being said about Limitless, let's move on to another broken ability of Gojo, the Six Eyes. Unlike Limitless, the Six Eyes is not a technique, but rather a rare gift also inherited within the Gojo family. It gives Gojo an extrasensory perception, allowing him to perceive anything with cursed energy in extreme detail. Any sorcerer can perceive cursed energy, but a Six Eyes bearer can read the flow of cursed energy even when their eyes are covered, allowing them to even detect people or objects with zero cursed energy. Gojo is the only person that has ever sensed Toji from behind, and it's all thanks to his Six Eyes. The eyes also give Gojo extremely precise manipulation of cursed energy, allowing him to use his cursed techniques with next to zero cursed energy expenditure. This allows Gojo to fight and use his limitless technique, as he will never run out of cursed energy. However, one major drawback of the Six Eyes is that it is a passive trait that even Gojo himself cannot deactivate. And while it doesn't need cursed energy to function, leaving Six Eyes uncovered for long periods of time can fatigue the bearer. That's why Gojo is almost always seen covering his eyes with a blindfold. And lastly, it's worth mentioning that Gojo is capable of using Black Flash and Reverse Curse technique as well. He is also capable of using anti-domain techniques like Simple Domain and Falling Blossom Emotion. And now let's move on to Gojo's arch-enemy, the undisputed king of curses himself, Ryomen Sukuna. We still don't know what exactly Sukuna's innate curse technique is to this day, but we do know about two of his signature attacks, Dismantle and Cleave. Dismantle is Sukuna's default slashing attack that is normally used for inanimate objects. However, it can also be used against cursed spirits and sorcerers to great effectiveness. This is what we see Sukuna using in his fights most of the time. Cleave, on the other hand, appears to be a more precision-based technique. It adjusts itself depending on the target's toughness and cursed energy level to cut them down in one hit. It is much more strategic than Dismantle, and appears to be used sparingly by Sukuna. This is probably because it needs much more cursed energy to activate. Cleave can also be used in the shape of a spider's web by touching the ground. In Chapter 249, shrine, we saw another unique application of Sukuna's slashes. He manipulated cleave and dismantle to such a precise degree that he grabbed Yuta's katana without actually touching it. Kinda reminded me of Gojo's Infinity. In addition to cleave and dismantle, Sukuna has a mysterious technique which is called Open. When it's activated, Sukuna can create and manipulate flames for long-range attacks by forming an arrow. Although we don't know much about this technique, it was strong enough to finish off both Jogo and Maharaga in Shibuya. Sukuna can use all three of his techniques inside his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. It is a barrierless domain that can have a radius of up to 200 meters. This domain allows Sukuna to use both cleave and dismantle to constantly slash everything within its effective area. And this slashing can only stop when Sukuna makes the domain disappear, or when he's so badly injured that he can no longer maintain the domain. And the final ability that Sukuna has up his sleeve is the ability to take over bodies. This is done by feeding one of his fingers to the person he wants to take over. We saw him using this ability in chapter 212 of the manga, where he swapped from Yuji's body to Megumi's. And it's worth mentioning that when Sukuna takes over someone's body, he gains access to their curse technique as well. As we saw after he took control over Megumi, he became an excellent user of the Ten Shadows technique. And lastly, Sukuna is also able to use reverse curse technique and anti-domain techniques like domain amplification. And in the latest chapter, we saw him using Hollow Wicker Basket to counter Yuta's domain.
Introducing Grammarly, like you've never seen before. Your all-in-one writing essential. This is Paraphraser, your go-to tool for writing that.
Following Sukuna, we have Gojo's best friend, Suguru Geto. Geto's innate technique is curse spirit manipulation. As the name suggests, this technique allows him to capture and control curse spirits after he defeats them in battle. After beating a curse spirit, Geto converts it into a ball of pure cursed energy and then eats it. He once stated eating these balls tastes like an old dirty rag used to wipe up vomit. If a curse's grade is 2 or more levels below Geto, he can absorb it without any conditions. This means he only has to beat grade 1 and special grade cursed spirits to control them. It's also worth mentioning that if a cursed spirit has a master-servant relationship with another sorcerer, Geto can only absorb it after the original master dies in some way. After Geto gains control over a cursed spirit, he can summon them anytime in the future. And also, there doesn't appear to be any limit on the number of curses that can be absorbed. Cursed spirit manipulation has a maximum technique called Maximum Uzumaki. This technique combines all the cursed spirits Geto has absorbed into one and hits the target with a blast of super condensed cursed energy. And while this sounds cool and all, Uzumaki's true potential actually lies in extracting cursed techniques of high-grade cursed spirits for one-time use. However, it's unclear if Geto knew about this ability, as we haven't seen him use it in the series. The one who introduced this to us was Kenjaku, who we will be talking about now. Many great stories have the trope of a villain who is considered to be the master manipulator, working behind the scenes to further their own schemes, while the rest of the world fights for problems that are much smaller in scale. In Jujutsu Kaisen, Kenjaku aka Pseudo Geto fills this role. Kenjaku's innate technique allows him to swap bodies with another person by transplanting his brain into the body of his target, even if they are dead. This technique allowed him to live for over 1,000 years. Once inside a body, he gains access to the host's cursed energy, their cursed technique, and even their memories. What makes this technique even more powerful is that even after switching from one body to another, he can keep all the cursed techniques of his previous hosts. Kenjaku has many cursed techniques thanks to his body hopping ability, so I'll try to explain his abilities as I talk about each of his hosts. Among his victims, there are very important characters he has inhabited that changed the course of history. His first victim was this unknown guy who we don't know much about. He used this guy to make binding vows with past sorcerers about 400 years ago. After this guy, Kenjaku transplanted his brain into Noritoshi Kamo's body. As Noritoshi Kamo, Kenjaku experimented with the fusion of human flesh and curses, resulting in the death paintings we see today. Due to Kenjaku's acts, Noritoshi Kamo is regarded as the evilest jujutsu sorcerer in history and the black sheep of the Kamo family. After Noritoshi, his next victim was none other than Yuji's mother, Kaori Itadori. He not only swiped Kaori's anti-gravity system technique, but also played matchmaker for her and birthed our dear protagonist, Yuji. The reason for this remains unknown to this day. It could be because he wanted to make the perfect vessel for Sukuna. However, this is just a theory, and it's not officially confirmed. The anti-gravity system that he stole from Kaori is one of the most broken techniques in the whole series. As the name implies, it allows Kenjaku to negate gravity around him, and it's the reason he survived Yuki's black hole. It can also be used to increase gravity through curse technique reversal, to crush his targets to the ground. After Geto's defeat against Yuta, Kenjaku took advantage of this and made Geto his final victim. As Geto, he gained access to cursed spirit manipulation, and of course, Uzumaki. However, unlike Geto, he didn't use Uzumaki just to make blasts of cursed energy, but he also used it to extract Mahito's cursed technique. He used idle transfiguration on Tengen's barrier to kickstart the culling game by remotely altering the souls of the people he marked throughout the years. He wants to optimize cursed energy through the culling game to merge Master Tengen and all the non-sorcerer sorcerers in Japan to give birth to a new single entity. Even Kenjaku himself doesn't know what the outcome will be, but that's his intention. Kenjaku is also capable of making mini versions of Uzumaki. These small Uzumaki are still very powerful, as they were able to deliver the final blow to Yuki. Kenjaku can also cast his domain expansion, Womb Profusion. However, we don't know much about this domain except it's a barrierless lethal domain, and it lets out powerful blasts at a certain gesture of Kenjaku's hands. And lastly, Kenjaku is also capable of using reverse curse technique. He used it to heal Geto's body after he took over him. He also revealed that cursed spirit manipulators can make the cursed spirits they possess stronger through using their own cursed energy.
Factor is proof that healthy food can taste unbelievably good. The Mediterranean diet is the world's healthiest diet, and Factor makes it easy to eat that way every day. A true Mediterranean meal.
Next, we have Todo's mentor, Yuki Tsukumo. Yuki is a special grade sorcerer who doesn't work with Jujutsu High. This is because she doesn't agree with how the higher-ups handle things. She believes by killing cursed spirits over and over again, they're only getting rid of the symptoms, but not the whole problem. So she goes about making the world curse-free in her own way, and that's by eliminating cursed energy in all humans. Apart from being a special grade, what makes Yuki even more important as a character in the series is that she is also a former star plasma vessel like Riko Amanai. Yuki's cursed technique is called Star Rage or Bombaye, which allows her to grant virtual mass to herself. And since the mass added to her is virtual, it makes her attack stronger without having the drawbacks of that extra mass. In her fight against Kenjaku, this technique made Yuki's attack so devastating that she punched through his arms and broke them both in half. She can also apply this technique to her Shikigami, Garuda. Garuda can act as Yuki's cursed tool and do her bidding, and can also act independently even if she's injured. We've seen Yuki turn Garuda into a whip, a restraint, and even a soccer ball when she channeled her inner Messi. When Star Rage is applied to Garuda, it can easily exercise special grade curses with one blow. Star Rage gives Yuki one of the most broken abilities in the series. She can turn herself into literally a black hole by continuously adding large amounts of mass to her body. However, this is Yuki's last resort, as it will kill her in the process. In Chapter 208, after she transformed herself into a black hole, Kenjaku stated that it could have blown up the whole world if it wasn't for Tengen's barrier and Yuki's will to suppress it. In addition to Star Rage, Yuki can also use anti-domain techniques like Simple Domain, and since she was Todo's mentor, she taught him how to use it as well. She is also the reason Todo has a scar on his face, as apparently his training with Yuki was not a picnic. And lastly, she can use reverse curse technique, and she has her own domain expansion, but unfortunately we never got to see how it was. The last special grade we are going to talk about is Yuta Okatsu. While he may not be as powerful as Gojo, it's undeniable that Yuta is a Jujutsu prodigy. This is because he became a special grade sorcerer with only 1 year of experience. And the fact that he has the second largest pool of cursed energy in the series, second only to Sukuna, is a testament to his great potential. Yuta's main curse technique is manifesting Rika. Rika can be partially manifested when Yuta simply calls out her name, and she can also manifest herself without him commanding her to do so. Once Rika is manifested, she acts on Yuta's commands most of the time. However, she can act independently to protect Yuta as well. Rika can also be fully manifested when she is connected to Yuta through his ring. The fully manifested Rika can act as an external storage to store additional cursed energy and a wide range of cursed tools, including Steel Arm. She also allows Yuta to gain access to his innate technique, Copy. As the name suggests, this technique allows Yuta to copy any cursed technique that Rika has stored for him. The conditions for Yuta to copy a technique are still unclear. A common theory is that Rika must eat a body part that belongs to the original user of the technique. What makes this technique even more powerful is that Yuta can copy multiple different techniques. So far in the series, we've seen Yuta copy 3 techniques. He copied cursed speech from Inumaki, which reinforces his words with cursed energy and manipulates his target's will. He copied sky manipulation from Uro, which can turn the sky into a tangible surface and use it to manipulate space. And lastly, he copied this unknown Shikigami technique from Druve that can slash his targets. In addition to all of this, the fully manifested Rika can be used in combat and fight alongside Yuta. She can even transform into an even more powerful form and unleash beams of cursed energy from her eye. This beam of pure love was strong enough to overpower Geto's Uzumaki and deliver the final blow to him. However, it's worth mentioning that Yuta can only maintain his connection with Rika for 5 minutes, and it's implied that she can be destroyed to end the connection even sooner. Yuta is also capable of using reverse curse technique. Alongside Shoko and Sukuna, Yuta can also heal people other than himself. He even took it to the next level, as he can heal poison victims, which requires more precise skills. He can also use Black Flash like he did against Geto. And in the latest chapter, we finally got to see his domain expansion, True Mutual Love. Yuta's domain takes his copy technique to the next level. The domain looks like a battlefield filled with swords, and each of the swords has a different curse technique that Yuta has copied imbued in them. And judging from the amount of swords inside the domain, Yuta can use an endless amount of curse techniques. This means that he can change his short-hit attack, and it's the only domain that can do so in the series. Imagine Yuta throwing a sword at Sukuna, and it happens to be hollow purple. And those were the 6 special grade sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen. I know there are other characters who also deserve to be on the list, but that's a topic for another video. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and it's what keeps this channel going.
From the weakest bums to the unhinged woman who fought Sukuna to the death just to express her love, and finally, the freak who could actually stand against Satoru Gojo. These are all 19 calling game players explained and ranked. Starting at the very bottom, we have Rin Amai. This guy is a coward from Yuji's high school who always tried to stay on the good side of the school bullies, even when he hated what they were doing. He's really just an average guy despite being turned into a sorcerer, which is why even other bums like Hanyu and Haba could treat him like their personal errand boy. His curse technique is called sugar manipulation. It allows him to increase his own sugar levels and use that sugar to manifest objects like puddings. The catch is that doing this tanks his blood pressure and causes hypoglycemia. Honestly, it almost feels wrong to even power scale this guy. He's basically just a normal person. That said, while Rin is easily the weakest calling game player, he's also an absolute shaft. Because when Ana falls off a skyscraper during the fight against Sukuna, he somehow saves her life using his curse technique. Moving on to number 18, we have Remy. She's a very insecure person who constantly relies on others to take care of her, which is why Megumi straight up called her trash during their encounter. Shortly after Megumi entered Tokyo #1 colony, Remy attacked him, only to get instantly defeated with a single strike to the face. Because she expects other people to act as her personal knight, Remy can't actually fight on her own, despite having a curse technique called scorpion hair, which lets her use her hair offensively. Now, using hair as a weapon is a common trope. Kaguya from Naruto was terrifying when she weaponized her hair, but Remy's a complete bum. When she stung Megumi with her hair, he brushed it off like it was a bee sting. Still, unlike Amai's puddings, Remy actually has an offensive ability, so she earns the spot above him. At number 17, we have Chizuru Hari. Now, this guy actually manages to rack up 28 points in the calling game, so at first glance, you might think he's strong. But remember, while killing a sorcerer gives you 5 points, killing a civilian still gives you 1. I wouldn't be surprised if most of those 28 points came from taking out random people. And even if he did kill a sorcerer or two, it was probably a group effort, considering he was part of Reggie Star's crew. As for his curse technique, we don't officially know its name, but in chapter 167, we see that it lets him shift his fingers into dark claws. Just like Remy, Chizuru also fights against Megumi during the calling game. He fails to land a single hit on Megumi, gets easily beaten twice, and then Megumi proceeds to kill him. Moving on, we've got Hanyu at number 16. Together with Haba and with Rin Amai as their gopher, Hanyu targets new players and tries to catch them off guard right after they enter the colony they're in. She pulls this move on Yuji and slams him with her curse technique, airplane hair. This technique lets her change her hair into a jet plane to propel herself at high speeds. We're talking enough velocity to send Yuji crashing through a building. The problem is that the rest of her body is incredibly vulnerable while she's flying, which is exactly why Yuji easily takes her out with a piece of rubble imbued with cursed energy. Now her partner Haba is who we're placing at number 15. And by partner, I don't mean they're in a relationship. They're partners in crime. Although, considering their names and techniques, you could easily confuse them for lovers or siblings. I mean, while Hanyu's technique is airplane hair, his is helicopter hair. He can change his hair into a 4-bladed propeller, which lets him fly and suspend himself in the air. Now, Haba is also easily defeated by Yuji with a kick to the gut. So why am I ranking him above Hanyu? Well, Haba got more screen time and showed a bit more trickiness than Hanyu, so he earns the higher spot. Though, if you love planes more than helicopters, feel free to swap them. While we don't know what happens to Hanyu after Yuji beats her, we do know that Haba is eventually shot dead by the US military. Now, so far we've only talked about different flavors of bums, but this is where things start to change. At number 14, we have Charles Bernard, the failed manga artist. His parents are French, but he was born and raised in Japan with the dream of becoming a mangaka. He regularly visits Shueisha to get his work reviewed, but nothing ever comes of it. In fact, one editor straight up tells him that his manga is basically mid. Fast forward to the calling game, where Charles awakens as a sorcerer and comes face to face with Hikari. And to be fair, he actually does pretty well against Hikari, especially considering he's a new sorcerer. His curse technique is called G War Staff. It allows him to manifest a curse tool shaped like a giant fountain pen. If Charles draws his opponent's blood into the tip of the pen, he fulfills a condition called ink, which lets him mark his opponent with a manga panel. That panel shows what happens after the present moment, meaning Charles can literally see into the future. It starts at just 1 second, but the more blood he draws, the further ahead he can see. And Charles actually manages to draw blood from Hikari of all people, which is no small feat. Sure, once Hikari hit the jackpot, he ended the fight in a single blow. But the fact that he had to take Charles seriously proves that he's on a different level from the players we ranked before him. Before we continue, do me a quick favor, guys. We're really close to hitting 100k subscribers and getting that silver play button. So if you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. Moving on to number 13, we have Rokujushi Mio. He's a sumo employer from the past. And let's start with the fact that he was able to defeat Maki in sumo wrestling. Keep in mind, Maki is the absolute pinnacle of physical prowess. Yet, Mio beats her multiple times. Here's how Mio's fighting style works. He uses a ritualized simple domain specifically for sumo wrestling. The rules are simple. Both participants must agree, and once inside the domain, all jujutsu and curse techniques are nullified. It is a genius, if extremely niche, application of a simple domain. Time also flows faster inside the domain, which is why Maki and Mio end up doing over 1,000 sumo bouts in less than a minute of real time. So why is Mio ranked above Charles? Well, if Charles and Mio were to fight, Charles would get physically overpowered, even if he never agreed to the sumo condition. And let's not forget that Mio also managed to catch Curse Naoya off guard and land a clean headbutt. Overall, Mio is also portrayed as relative to the man at number 12, Hagane Daido. Daido is a master swordsman with absolutely unrivaled skill with a blade. During the fight against Curse Naoya, Daido wields Maki's split silk katana, and everyone around him is overwhelmed by an aura of pure lethality. He's actually able to hurt Curse Naoya even more than Maki did before she was fully realized, which is already insane considering Curse Naoya gave Maki a serious run for her money during their first encounter. What makes this even crazier is that Daido isn't even a sorcerer, which means unlike the other players, he can't see Curse spirits at all. Instead, he perceives their presence and attacks by seeing everything else around them, essentially sensing the world differently through extreme martial skill alone. It's so impressive that Maki herself struggles to understand how Daido's outperforming her. Ultimately, thanks to both Mio and Daido, Maki becomes a fully realized fighter equal to Toji and finally defeats Curse Naoya. At number 11, we have Reggie Star. He racked up 41 points and was leading a group of 3 other players. We've already talked about 2 of them, Remy and Chizuru, who were both defeated by Megami. And Reggie himself ends up as yet another victim of Megami during the Culling game. His curse technique is contractual recreation. Basically, by burning a contract, Reggie can bring whatever's written on it into existence. For example, if he burns a receipt for kitchen knives, he can recreate those knives and command them like Shikigami, although the item disappears once it finishes carrying out the order. And this is not limited to physical objects either. Reggie can even burn a receipt for something like 2 days at a spa to restore stamina. However, because he has to burn these contracts to activate his technique, water acts as a natural countermeasure. So the moment his precious receipts get wet, his curse technique is basically useless. That said, Reggie's actually pretty impressive. He can use the anti-domain technique, Hollow Wicker Basket, and his cursed energy reinforcement is strong enough to survive the crushing weight of Megami's Max Elephant. When you combine his technique with his analytical mind, you can see how he relies on deception and psychological warfare to stay ahead. He even turns Megami's own domain against him by forcing Megami to bear the physical weight of everything stored in his shadow. After trading blows for a while, Reggie's ultimately caught off guard by the speed of Megami's Shikigami dogs and gets killed. Next, we have the last member of Reggie's group, Hazunoki. And even though Reggie was the leader, I'm ranking Hazunoki above him at number 10, and you'll quickly see why. While he only had 35 points compared to Reggie's 41, Reggie himself considered Hazunoki dangerous. He noted that Hazunoki would kill anyone who mocked him enough to make him go all out. Hazunoki's first technique is called Explosive Flesh, and he is completely unhinged with it. He literally rips out his own eyes or teeth and uses them as exploding projectiles. What really puts him above Reggie, though, is the fact that he's one of the very few sorcerers capable of using reverse curse technique. And it makes sense. I mean, how else is he going to restore the body parts he's throwing around? Thanks to RCT, Hazunoki has an almost infinite supply of ammunition. After teaming up with Reggie to fight Megami, we don't see much more from him aside from the legendary, goofy fight with Takaba. He also manages to defeat an American soldier later on, but he's eventually killed by Kenjaku. Next up are the 4 elite players of the Sendai colony that have reached a tense deadlock with each other until my boy Yuta entered the colony. These players are Drew Lakdawala, Ryu Ishigori, Takako Uro, and Kuro Urushi. And the one replacing at number 9 is Kuro Urushi. Kuro Urushi is actually a cursed spirit born from humanity's fear of cockroaches. At some point, it was absorbed with cursed spirit manipulation by either Geto or Kenjaku after he took over Geto's body. Then for the Culling game, Kenjaku summoned it to participate as one of the players. And as it turns out, Kuro Urushi is one of the 16 registered mastered special grade cursed spirits. It can speak clearly, understands the game well enough to rack up 54 points before the deadlock with Rio, Uro, and Druve. And during this deadlock, it was intelligent enough to realize that Druve isn't a favorable matchup, so it chose to hibernate instead. Its curse technique is called Cursed Cockroaches, which allows it to create and control an absurd number of man-eating cockroaches, all reinforced with its cursed energy. And thanks to a process called parthenogenesis, any flesh consumed by the cockroaches can be used to produce even more cockroaches. Kurorushi takes this a step further by reproducing an entirely new cursed spirit as its offspring. When Yuta finally exercises the original Kurorushi with a cursed kiss, with a freaky mouth-to-mouth blast of positive energy, the spirit simply transfers all its cursed energy into the offspring. That offspring then proceeds to crash the iconic three-way domain expansion clash between Yuta, Uro, and Ryu. Kurorushi was considered a nasty and unfavorable matchup by Uro, which makes sense, since the offspring actually manages to cut off one of her arms. However, she's the only one it deals any real damage to. It can't withstand a direct hit from Ryu's Granite Blast, and Yuta ultimately exercises it with reverse curse technique. Now, as I said, Kurorushi was waiting for Druve to exit the chat before making any moves, because it knew Druve was a bad matchup. And well, Druve Lakdawala is who we have at number 8. Druve is a complete anomaly who came from centuries before the Heian era. He was around in the 2nd century, during the Civil War of Wa in ancient Japan, where he supposedly conquered the Japanese archipelago single-handedly. But wait, if he lived that long before the Heian era, how did he end up in the modern day? It's because he incarnated twice, first on his own, and then later with Kenjaku's help. During the Colon game, Druve managed to rack up 91 points. And while Kurorushi was right to fear his curse technique, it's also one we never get to see fully in action. What we do know is that it involves two different types of Shikigami, and by having them move in a circular path, Druve creates a powerful automatic barrier. This barrier makes it nearly impossible for enemies to approach him without being intercepted. Unfortunately for him, none of that matters, because Yuta easily kills him off screen. Number 7 is Takako Uro. Back in the Heian era, there was a sorcerer family called the Fujiwara clan, who had 2 elite squadrons of sorcerers. One was called the 5 Empty Generals, while the other was the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, and the second group was led by Uro. Unfortunately, she was framed and sentenced to death for killing another member of the clan. Fast forward to the modern day, where she incarnates during the Culling game and racks up 70 points before the 4-way deadlock. Her innate technique is called sky manipulation. It allows her to treat the sky as a tangible physical surface, like a sheet of cloth or a lens. She uses distortion to warp incoming attacks, redirecting them away from herself or back at her opponents. She can also fly, and she's able to wear the sky itself to cloak her body. She also has an extension technique called Thin Icebreaker, where she strikes the surface of the sky and it shatters it like ice, creating a powerful shockwave. Naturally, Uro's curse technique makes her extremely difficult to hit, and even Yuta struggles to land a clean blow without relying on Rika and his copy techniques. On top of that, Uro quickly deduces Yuta's copy ability, and thanks to her history with the Fujiwara clan, she immediately recognizes curse speech the moment she sees it. She also possesses a domain expansion that's at least relative to Ryu Ishiguri's, even though we never actually see either domain fully manifested. After a long battle with Yuta and Ryu, Uro is eventually knocked unconscious by Ryu's Granite Blast. However, she actually manages to survive. Later on, she wakes up and gives Yuta her points, while also warning him how powerful Sukuna truly is. Now, Uro was cautious of Kurorushi, just like Kurorushi was cautious of Druve. So why is she ranked above them both? It's because she was objectively a trickier opponent for Yuta, and while she was wary of the special grade cockroach, her technique made her a near-perfect counter to Ryu. She could grab his energy blasts and redirect them straight back at him, which goes to show that even if you have a matchup advantage, you're not automatically above your opponent. We're placing Ryu Ishiguri above her at number 6 despite the matchup advantage. Ryu is from 400 years ago, and Kenjaku himself revealed that he has the highest cursed energy output in history. His output is actually so high that he remains just as dangerous even when his curse technique is burned out after a domain expansion, and that alone is an incredible feat. Ryu earned 77 points, and he was the only player in the Sendai colony capable of clashing with Yuta on equal terms in raw physical strength. Heck, he even manages to overpower Rika. His innate technique is called Cursed Energy Discharge, which allows him to fire concentrated blasts of cursed energy from his hair, styled into a cannon-shaped, classic anime delinquent haircut. Literally a head cannon, if you will. His signature move is Granite Blast, a hyper-concentrated beam of cursed energy powerful enough to level city blocks and even one-shot special-grade curses like Kurorushi. On top of that, Ryu can discharge cursed energy through physical contact, adding explosive force to his punches and kicks. He's also sharp enough to correctly deduce the conditions behind Yuta's copy technique, and he has a domain expansion of his own. Ryu is eventually defeated by Yuta, and later, when a 15-finger Sukuna appears using Megami's body, Ryu is easily killed after Sukuna slices his head. And this brings us to the top 5. And let me just say, every single one of these players is powerful enough to challenge the king of curses. For example, number 5 is Hana Karusu, or should I say, Angel. This is a really interesting case, because unlike most incarnated players who suppress their host consciousness, Angel actually lives in harmony with Hana. It's a symbiotic relationship, kind of like Yuji and Sukuna, but in this case, they're actually on the same side. Hana's an orphan who was once saved by a young Megami, which caused her to fall for him. Angel, on the other hand, is a sorcerer from the Heian era who once fought Sukuna as part of the Deshi pacification squad. They were defeated, and from that point on, Angel became completely obsessed with killing Sukuna, the disgraced one. That brings us to her curse technique, Technique Extinguishment, and it's exactly what it sounds like, the ability to negate any and all curse techniques. It doesn't matter if it's a barrier, a seal, or a cursed object. Even special grade cursed objects like the prison realm aren't safe. In fact, it's this very technique that finally frees Gojo. Naturally, this means her technique is a death sentence for reincarnated sorcerers like Sukuna or the Sendai top tiers we just talked about, since it can literally purge the cursed object from the host. And when she uses maximum output Jacob's Ladder, a massive pillar of light descends from a heptagram array in the sky, extinguishing every cursed technique in its path. This is how she almost defeats 15-finger Sukuna. The only reason she fails is because, after barely surviving the first wave, Sukuna exploits Hana's feelings for Megami. He starts acting sweet and tricks her by pretending Megami's regained control. On top of her curse technique, Hana can also fly, and she was the only player capable of passing freely through colony barriers before the rules were changed. All things considered, if she weren't mostly reliant on group fights or very specific openings, I honestly could have ranked her even higher. Now, Hana ends up losing her right arm to Sukuna, so after the Shinjuku showdown, Megami offers to be her right arm going forward. She mistakes this for a marriage proposal, even though that's clearly not what he meant. And since Gege Akutami never bothered to elaborate on Megami's future, even as of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 18, the latest chapter at the time of writing, I'm just gonna assume Megami lived happily ever after with Hana. Hana eventually passes away sometime before 2087. Her death hits our boy Yuji especially hard, and pushes him to distance himself from his friends and from Jujutsu society as a whole. Moving on to number 4, we have Hiromi Higuruma. He's a genius lawyer who passed the elite national bar exam on his first try and was highly praised by his peers. But unlike other lawyers, Higuruma vowed to keep his eyes open to the truth. At some point, he's assigned a murder case where the defendant is clearly innocent. When he sees the look of pure despair on his client, combined with the corruption of the court, it completely destroys him. In that moment of clarity and rage, he awakens his curse technique for the first time, demands a retrial on the spot, and kills both the judge and the prosecutor right there in the courtroom. He then spends the next 10 days exercising cursed spirits and analyzing his domain expansion to master barrier techniques and cursed energy. By the time he meets Yuji, he's accumulated 102 points by killing 20 sorcerer players. It takes him just 12 days after awakening to reach the level of a grade 1 sorcerer, which is honestly insane. It's no wonder it was stated that his raw talent actually rivaled that of Satoru Gojo. On top of that, he achieves the incredibly rare feat of toggling his technique while using domain amplification. That's something we've only ever seen Sukuna himself do. His curse technique, Judgment, is a shikigami that oversees legal proceedings with Higuruma's domain. It's effectively omniscient, meaning it knows everything there is to know about the defendant. His domain expansion, Deadly Sentencing, is a non-lethal domain that creates a courtroom where all violence is prohibited. Once inside, opponents are put on trial for crimes they've committed based on Judgment's total knowledge. Higuruma acts as the prosecutor, while the opponent, the defendant, must argue for their innocence. If found guilty, Judgment confiscates the opponent's curse technique. If they don't have one, it strips them of the ability to use cursed energy entirely. And if the sentence is death, Higuruma's gavel transforms into the Executioner's sword, where even a single scratch results in instant death. On top of all this, Higuruma even masters reverse curse technique by the time of the final battle against Sukuna. During that fight, Higuruma successfully traps Sukuna inside his domain. Sukuna, intrigued by the Executioner's sword, immediately confesses to his crimes, and Judgment delivers both the death penalty and confiscation. However, because Sukuna is carrying the cursed tool Kamatoke, the confiscation targets the tool instead of his innate technique. That's how Sukuna manages to retain his shrine, and since Higuruma is incapacitated before the Executioner's sword can carry out the execution, the sword ultimately fails. Following the Shinjuku showdown, Higuruma chooses to face his past rather than simply continue on as a sorcerer. He undergoes a retrial for the judge and prosecutor he killed and confronts the families of his victims, bringing his arc full circle and returning him to his original pursuit of true justice. Overall, because Higuruma is a more complete and technically gifted fighter than Hana, with much stronger one-on-one feats, he earns this spot above her. Finally, we've reached the top 3, and coming in at number 3 is Yorozu. She's a completely unhinged woman from the Heian era who fell head over heels in love with Sukuna. Remember the 5 empty generals of the Fujiwara clan that I mentioned while talking about Sekiro, Yorozu became famous specifically for defeating them back in the Heian era. That feat earned her an invitation to the capital, where she had her infamous encounter with Sukuna. Despite Sukuna slashing her in disgust, she became obsessed with his loneliness and vowed to be the one by his side forever. Fast forward to the Culling game, she is incarnated in the body of Megami's stepsister, Sumiki. She deceives Megami by using Sumiki's memories to perfectly pretend that she's his sister, at least until he transfers his points to her. Her only real motivation for participating in the Culling game is to find and fight Sukuna to express the ultimate form of love through battle. Her curse technique is construction, the same technique used by Mai Zenith, and as we saw with Mai, it's incredibly energy inefficient. She can only create a single bullet per day before collapsing. Yorozu could obviously do far more thanks to her massive cursed energy reserves, but it wasn't until she developed clever workarounds like liquid metal and biomechanical constructs that she became a true top-tier threat. Basically, she created a tiered arsenal of increasingly perfect weapons. First is liquid metal, her primary and most versatile tool. It maintains stable physical properties while freely shifting shape and volume to attack or defend. Then there's insect armor, her specialized combat suit. By copying the biological efficiency of an insect carapace, she gains massive boosts in strength, speed, and durability, while minimizing energy waste. And finally, the true sphere. This is where things get crazy. You see, a perfect sphere is considered mathematically impossible. No matter how smooth the ball looks, if you zoom in far enough, you'll always find microscopic ridges or flat edges. But Yorozu completely ignores the laws of physics and creates one anyway. Now, as any math teacher will tell you, when you divide anything by zero, the result is infinity. And because a perfect sphere has no contact area, it generates infinite pressure, making it untouchable and capable of destroying absolutely anything it comes into contact with. On top of all that, she can also create insect wings to fly. And then there's her domain expansion, Threefold Affliction. The sure hit effect to the domain applies to Yorozu's constructed items. During her fight with Sukuna, she uses the true sphere as the sure hit. She knows Sukuna's in serious trouble, and honestly, he really was. But what she doesn't realize is that Sukuna had already used Maharaga to adapt to her curse technique behind the scenes. Maharaga then casually destroys her perfect sphere and kills her. With her dying breath, Yorozu makes a binding vow, expending all her remaining life and cursed energy to construct a replica of Komotoke, Sukuna's legendary cursed tool from the Heian era, and gifts it to him as her final act of love. Moving on to number 2, we have Hajime Kashimo, the strongest sorcerer of his era. 400 years ago, Kashimo made a deal with Kenjaku to become a cursed object, all for one reason, so he could reincarnate and fight the strongest sorcerer in history, Sukuna. After his incarnation, Kashimo racks up 200 points by killing 40 players in just 12 days. He viewed modern sorcerers as nothing but weaklings compared to those of his time. He even added a rule to the Culling game that allowed players to see each other's stats, specifically to lure out stronger opponents. So, how does Kashimo fight? His cursed energy has the permanent property of electricity. Every strike he lands shocks his opponent, making his attacks impossible to block through conventional means. We're basically talking about a short-hit lightning strike without the need for a domain. By striking a target, he transfers positive charges to them, then releases a negative charge from himself, creating a lightning bolt. And because opposite charges attract, the bolt is guaranteed to hit. Kashimo is also naturally immune to electrical attacks, which is how he completely nullifies an attack from Sukuna's Komotoke. Interestingly though, he does have a weakness to water. Normally, electric-type Pokemon are a bad match for water types, but in this case, water causes Kashimo's cursed energy to leak away. Overall, don't believe the memes. Kashimo deserves the glaze. Yes, he sucks for killing Panda's family, but his fight with Hikari is genuinely generational. Even with Jackpot making Hikari effectively invincible, Kashimo still tries to kill him by targeting the brain, the source of reverse curse technique that was keeping Hikari alive. He even uses electrolysis to turn seawater into poisonous chlorine gas, which just proves he's a massive nerd. Kashimo can also use the ancient anti-domain technique Hollow Wicker Basket, but his true trump card is his innate technique, Mythical Beast Amber. This technique reconstructs his flesh to manifest electrical phenomena like sonic waves and electromagnetic beams, while also massively boosting his brain's processing speed. The downside is that it pushes his body far beyond human limits. Once the technique ends, his body collapses and he dies, meaning it can only be used once in his lifetime. That's why he never used it 400 years ago. He became the strongest of his era without ever needing his cursed technique. Of course, he finally unleashes it against Sukuna, and it allows him to blitz and pressure Sukuna into fully reincarnating into his true form. Now, the version of Sukuna Kashimo overwhelms is still heavily injured and exhausted from his fight with Gojo, but when you compare Kashimo's performance to Yorozu's fight against 15-Finger Sukuna, it's clear who did more. Sukuna was mostly nonchalant against Yorozu, just testing out the 10 shadows. Against Kashimo, he had to bring out his true form. One last thing worth mentioning is Kashimo's solitude. He viewed strength itself as a curse that leads to isolation, which is why he asked Sukuna whether being the strongest means being forever alone. In response, Sukuna kills Kashimo using the same world-cutting slash that killed Gojo, followed by a massive net of slashes, and then tells him that love is worthless. And finally, at number 1, we have none other than Fumihiko Takaba. The only way to beat this guy is to make him lose faith in his own humor. Otherwise, good luck fighting the most absurdly diverse curse technique in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. Takaba is so overpowered that Angel specifically chose him to neutralize Kenjaku. And Kenjaku, the strongest curse user in history, with over 1,000 years of experience, straight up admits that his vast Jujutsu knowledge is completely useless against Takaba's reality warping abilities. You see, his curse technique is comedian. If Takaba thinks of something that he is certain will be funny, it becomes reality, and he has absolute confidence in his humor. This technique is stated to have the potential to oppose even Satoru Gojo. To give you a few examples of how broken this is, it can manifest complex comedic scenarios that force others to participate, regardless of their power level. It creates a kind of soul resonance by integrating the thoughts and reactions of those around him into the reality he's building. It can even turn extremely lethal attacks, like Kenjaku's curse spirit manipulation, into harmless punchlines. The craziest part is that Takaba is completely unaware of his own curse technique, but that ignorance is exactly what allows it to function so freely. He isn't restricted by the logic of traditional jujutsu. On top of that, Takaba's cursed energy spikes dramatically whenever he's determined to entertain. That surge was strong enough to send Hazanoki flying through multiple buildings with a single reinforced hit. But, as I said, if Takaba's belief in his own comedy is shaken, the technique stops working entirely. He must remain funny in his own mind to remain invincible. But then again, it took someone like Kenjaku to make him doubt his humor. Do you really think someone like Yorozu or Kashimo could keep up with that? No, he'd clown all over them, which is why he earned the #1 spot. Also, his fight with Kenjaku is a genuine work of art when it comes to modern shonen battles. It's no wonder Takaba ends up choosing a man who resembles Kenjaku as his new comedy partner after the Shinjuku showdown. Both of them enjoyed that fight, and let's be real, we did too. And there you have it. Those were all 19 calling game players ranked and explained. Do you agree with this list, or are you questioning my reading comprehension? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And if you want more JJK content, click on this next video where I explain and rank all 16 students of Jujutsu High.
This is Mabel, and she's about to use technology to explore the animal world. This beaver is now Mabel. This is King George, and he's about to teach Mabel how to survive in the pond.
Okay, so to the left of the...
Back when I was a young weeb who had just graduated from weeb school, aka watched more than 100 anime and refused to shower for a week, I started getting tired of the battle shonen anime that usually featured a trio of somewhat likable characters that punched anything they did not understand. Now, the classics still hold a special place in my heart, but every new action anime that came out started to feel like it was trying to become something we had already seen. So I was pleasantly surprised when I first watched Jujutsu Kaisen. Everything from the characters to the world building felt like a fresh take on the all-too familiar formula that had me yawning in my seat in the past. One thing I especially loved about Jujutsu Kaisen is the sheer amount of badassery on screen at any given time. From deadly cursed spirits to powerful sorcerers, the series had no shortage of characters that would easily solo other anime universes. However, even among these powerhouses is a rank of characters so broken that all of them had to be nerfed by plot. Of course, I'm talking about the 4 special grade sorcerers. Doing what this channel does best, we are going to rank the special grade sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen from weakest to strongest. Kicking off this list with a hot take, we have Suguru Geto as the weakest special grade.
From the weakest bums to the unhinged woman who fought Sukuna.
Gojo wasn't lying when he said the special grade ranking is going to be obsolete, because the next generation of sorcerers are so powerful that they have reached above it. Gojo realized that it was not enough for him alone to be strong. Thus, in order to change Jujutsu society from the root, he began training sorcerers who could reach his power level or surpass it. Given that Kenjaku claimed a special grade is someone capable of wiping out a nation with one hand behind their back, we we start to understand the monsters Gojo has created, just like the manga and Shoko claim them to be. We have 7 sorcerers who deserve this title, starting with the one who broke free of curse energy, and Sukuna acknowledged, Maki Zenin. Even though she was certified as a grade 4 sorcerer, her real skills were way beyond this low-ranking grade. Maki was recommended to be semi-grade 1 by Meimei and Todo, with Gojo agreeing, but due to corruption, it never occurred. However, her life completely changed in chapter 149. Since she was born with heavily restriction, Maki could only achieve her full potential if her twin died. So, when their father threw them into a pit full of cursed spirits, Mai gave up on her life in order to stop holding Maki back and left her with the soul-slashing katana. It can cut through anything, regardless of its hardness, and directly impacts the soul. We see this occur against Sukuna, where he admits that his healing slowed down and he must manually pump his heart. This sword can exorcise any curse, even though she possesses no curse energy. Hence, Maki unleashed her hidden power, which makes her father only have flashbacks to Doji, who was also known as the Sorcerer Killer, and the Zenin clan only survived on his whim, as he was capable of destroying them all. But Maki said, okay, I'll do it then. Let's annihilate the entire Zenin clan. In these few minutes, Maki took out multiple grade 1 and higher sorcerers like Jinichi. Even the 2 special combat squads didn't stand a chance. All the formidable techniques of the Zenin members were not enough, such as the giant stone hands attack, which should have broken her bones, or a paralysis technique, which was meaningless in front of her brute strength, and the sheer determination to break free. So essentially, by chapter 151, Maki gained a body of speed that could take insane amount of damage without collapsing. Even before Maki's awakening, she tanked Jogo's fire, which was around 1200 to 1250 Celsius. This burnt grade 1s like Nanami or Nabito crispy, like fried chicken.
It's chicken. It's fried chicken. It's fried chicken. I like fried chicken.
She survived. And if Toji could tank a red from Gojo, which outputs twice as much energy as blue, and completely survive A-OK, what would these puny attacks do in comparison? Her special grade status is made even more evident in her fight with Naoya. They clashed head to head, and despite him having the broken projection technique, which allowed Naobito, the previous clan head, be the fastest sorcerer alive after Gojo, Naoya took it one notch higher by moving at subsonic speed, but the trick to this technique was all but seen by Maki. The illusion of speed only happened because normal sorcerers just couldn't move or sense the actions. However, in chapter 151, Maki could finally not just see Naoya moving at his top speed, but she could also keep up with him. But the worst of Naoya was yet to come, as he turned into a vengeful cursed spirit. His highest speed drastically increased from subsonic to Mach 3, which meant now he was moving at thrice the speed of sound itself, around 3,700 kilometers per hour, which now explains why Koji and Maki could basically run on water and eventually air itself, just like Sukuna. However, even though the manga declared that Maki scaled equal to Toji in terms of physical strength, it wasn't until chapter 196 and further that her other stats such as speed, durability, and technique upgraded to a superhuman level. This is because Maki had a lot of mental blockers she needed to overcome to break through all her power limiters. And that's when Mio approached her with a simple sumo fight, doing a complete training montage. This allowed her to become the most powerful version of herself, who could finally see all that was going on. This new version of Maki could kick kick Naoya's ass. She could sense every change in the atmosphere around her, including the most minimal difference in movement, heat, and even the souls of inorganic matter, basically allowing her to see at a molecular level, allowing her to dodge every possible attack. Her reflexes scaled to a special grade level because she finally understood the feeling of seeing everything all at once. Maki's counterattack even broke through Naoya's armor, which is even more durable than Hanami's. This feat already places her among some of the strongest characters in raw hand-to-hand combat and durability, because according to the official fanbook, Hanami's durability scales higher than Jogo, a cursed spirit who was equal to 8 fingers of Sukuna. She became absolutely broken, just as Toji Fushiguro was, and more. For example, Toji beat an unawakened Gojo whom couldn't keep up, and then he no-dipped Geto, killing his rainbow dragon that supposedly had the hardest skin. Even Dagon was a disaster cursed special grade whom got utterly destroyed due to being outpowered, outsped, and outstrategized. Now, although Maki and Toji don't have reverse curse technique, she is capable of healing internal damage in 5 minutes, which is no wonder she got back up once Sukuna Black flashed her. Oh, wait, what? That sounds kind of wrong. What did I just say?
Yeah, boy.
Okay, but what about against domain expansions? Well, Naoya unleashed his domain, but Maki's heavenly restriction revealed something OP. Maki has 0 curse energy, which means the rules of Jujutsu governing domains consider her to be same as an inanimate object like a building. This implies that she cannot be trapped in a domain unless either of the 2 conditions are fulfilled. Number 1, the domain expansion itself uses a physical barrier, like Megami used a gymnasium to trap Reggie in chapter 170. The second is Maki agreeing to the rules of the domain and enters it. An example being Toji back in chapter 73, where he willingly answered the cursed spirit's question to break free. This alone makes Maki have one of the best defensive feats in the series, because domains are the master stroke of any sorcerer with a guaranteed hit. So she beat Naoya, but it's her clashes with Sukuna that truly make her title of special grade confirmed. In chapter 213, Sukuna tried to kill off Maki with a kaiju type Nue, only for Maki to end it with ease and enter his battle with Yuji. Since Nue completely failed to even scratch Maki, Sukuna admitted that she could not be killed sloppily. In fact, he had even failed to notice her presence near him, which shows how OP she is, because even Gojo sensed Toji's presence when he was a kid. Hence, Maki went for a hand-to-hand combat against Sukuna, keeping up with his 15 fingers, but he was being held back by Megami. However, given the fact that Megami already compared Toji's casual speed to 3-finger Sukuna, and his power increases exponentially with each one, it's astounding that Maki kept up with his Heian era form. The gang needed a surprise attack, and Maki joined the fray by stepping into action as soon as Yutha's domain stops. She instantly stabs Sukuna with the soul-splitting katana, showcasing that she had grown even stronger in the 1-month time skip, just like the other sorcerers. Even when Sukuna tried to grab the sword, he gets overpowered by her strength, only to be met with the world-cutting slash. But this attack failed because Maki dodged the most powerful attack in the entire series. The speed needed to dodge the slash is ridiculous, which impressed Sukuna to a massive extent, as he declared that Maki could see his technique better than any other sorcerer. He even compared fighting Maki to feeling the same as going against Mahoraga in the Shibuya incident, telling us that she's able to do something other sorcerers can't. Sukuna hit her with multiple black flashes, and she survived, which wouldn't be possible for a regular person. So if getting acknowledged from the king himself isn't proof that Maki is special grade, I don't know what go! Speaking of being physically gifted, we have to mention Yuji. By chapter 260, Yuji can easily kill Jogo, who is equal to 8 Sukuna fingers in only a few punches. Don't believe me?
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built.
Well, the author claimed in the Shibuya incident that 5 black flashes with the help of Todo would kill the special grade curse instantly. However, since that time, Yuji has gotten even stronger, making his power level multiple times higher than it was. For example, a 15-finger Sukuna claimed he would join the disaster curses if Jogo could land even one single attack on him, which he couldn't. But we have already seen Yuji land 7 black flashes in a row on Sukuna's Heian Era form, which means all his stats have already put the disaster curses in the dust. To prove that Yuji can now casually kill them all and has reached special grade, let's break down the story that led to Yuji's evolution in strength. After Shibuya, Choso claimed that Yuji's curse energy refinement had leveled up to a demon god. This linked to his potential being unlocked even further against Mahito when he did 4 consecutive black flashes. Like, did you know in volume 15's extra, Gege informs us that Mahito's true form is 200% more powerful than his normal state, which is insane since Yuji still killed him within 1 black flash that he put all his might into. If you didn't know that, please smash the like button and subscribe, because this information skyrockets his scaling to the roof, as arguably none of the other characters at this point of the story would have defeated and awakened Mahito. On top of that, Mahito, just like Sukuna, backs up the claim from chapter 249 that Yuji's soul is unbreakable. He was stated to only have 10% of soul strength left compared to Mahito's 40%. Yeah, he still came out victorious. But speaking of easy dubs, once the culling game began, Yuji destroyed a Mai who had a jet engine. In chapter 161, she slammed right into Yuji at Mark 3 speed into multiple buildings, but he had no damage, declaring that Yuji is tough since that attack would have made most people into mincemeat. Eventually, all he had to do was throw a rock at her with curse energy to win the fight, and then she just punched her boyfriend twice and it was over. This eventually led to Higuruma complimenting Yuji for his immense strength, just like all the other characters thus far. Keep in mind, Yuji was fighting him without curse energy, despite Higuruma being equal to a grade 1 like Nanami at this point in the story, where he admits to using everything he had to start overpowering our MC. However, everything later on pretty much confirmed Yuji's special grade status with the others, as he kept up with Maki's speed at Mark 3 to fight Sukuna, and then tanked a full powered punch to the stomach without even getting knocked out. He gets up to showcase his overwhelming strength that the king had noticed, and then proceeds to laugh at him. But that would be the last laugh. During the 1-month time skip, Sukuna confirmed that every single sorcerer upgraded their curse energy refinement to such a degree that together they can land attacks. This is a multiple power level increase, as later in chapter 250 he confirms once again that all the sorcerers have shown up with extremely tight defenses where they can take on his slashes if they are not a direct hit. But Yuji's strength increase is a step further. By consuming his remaining brothers, he gained the technique of blood manipulation, which he then trained with Choso and Narutoshi Kama on how to use it. This allowed him to explode blood on Sukuna's face and shoot a point-blank piercing blood. But I'm only just getting started on his new special abilities. Using Ui Ui's soul transfer technique, he swapped with Kusakabe and Yuta. This would accelerate the learning process as the memories and muscles in that person's body are transferred to each other. With Kusakabe, he improved his curse energy control and learned Simple Domain, which let Yuji survive the Malevolent Shrine. The second person was Yutha, as Rika ate a finger, so they practiced using Shrine, which Yutha then used in battle. However, once awakened, Yuji gained this for himself, which now gives him 2 techniques. Now, that wasn't the only reason to swap with Yutha, as Yuji then mastered one of the most rare abilities of all, Reverse Curse Technique. He's capable of regenerating limbs in an instant, which Ryu claimed was one hell of a feat for a sorcerer to even achieve. But the
I hate that I can't keep this a secret. I canceled all my food delivery subscriptions and upgraded to Cook Unity. And it's totally transformed the way I eat because every meal is crafted by award-winning chefs from across the country. The variety is unlike anything.
cherry on top is that Yuji survived 4 point-blank slash attacks from Sukuna that should have killed him, yet using RCT proficiently allowed him to push forward. Any other person would be mincemeat into several pieces, let's be honest. This leads me to the moment of breaking the Black Flash record. As we know, he's blessed by the spark of black. It's a 1 in a million chance, but he does it so often that it looks like he does it at will, which even pissed off Sukuna that Yuji is trying to match his power. Yuji gets so determined to kill Sukuna that he enters the zone. 7 consecutive black flashes broke Nanami and Gojo's record, but a total of 8 occurs with the help of Todo. Like, remember, these are not even normal punches, as Yuji has a special property that no ordinary sorcerer has. Yuji can see the contours of the soul, which means his punches directly impact them. This leads to Sukuna losing control of his body and diminishing his curse energy output, allowing for everyone to keep fighting on, just as Choso claimed in chapter 256. Soul punches are more effective than you think, because even after Sukuna entered the zone himself and performed 4 black flashes, he wasn't able to heal himself. But this is the king of curses we're talking about here. Obviously, an ordinary person would be knocked out instantly with their souls leaving their body if Yuji fought them. So let's add some evidence that Yuji can beat the disaster curses. Firstly, Jogo's maximum meteor was dodged by the likes of Kusakabe and Panda, even though they ran at the very last second, which means it's way too slow. Yuji's simple domain tanks Sukuna's malevolent shrine for 60 seconds or so. This is the most refined and powerful domain that equally matches Unlimited Void, stated in chapter 225. And as Gojo stated, the best counter to domain is to cast your own domain in a battle, where as soon as he used his one against Jogo early in the series, it outmatched it instantly where he would have died. So Yuji's simple domain is scaling way higher than you think for him to maintain it for that long, as he learned it from the best, Kusakabe after all, who can even weaken Sukuna's slashes and deflect them in his simple domain. Jogo even admitted he won't even open domain expansion against a 15-finger Sukuna because he knows he will lose. On top of that, Yuji didn't even fry to death when he was in his domain, where Jogo claimed an average sorcerer would instantly burn to death. Mind you, pre-awakened Maki tanked his fire attack to survive, and as you can tell by this point,
after the wedding, they hunted me. By one.
The game's only just begun.
Background 2. Yeah.
Ready or not to, here I come. Rated R.
I'm showing my way. If anybody wishes to follow, you're invited.
of the video, Yuji is multiple times more durable than that. Kenjaku also confirmed that Mahito surpassed Jogo since he evolved, and he expected Jogo to do so as well, but he never did. Jogo never hit his full potential. So even though the manga claims Jogo is the fastest and strongest out of the disaster curses, he is simply way too weak to face the monsters Gojo has created at this point. The fact remains that Yuji outmaneuvered Sukuna's Heiganera 20-finger form in combat when he was awakened. He matched his speed and has some of the best defensive feats amongst the sorcerers. There is no way he isn't a special grade. Even Sukuna himself admits that Yuji is unfazed by his slashes and punches once he was awakened. On top of that, he is still going to master Shrine, Blood Manipulation, RCT, and then Domain Expansion to completely become the strongest of all time. This is proven with Kusakabe claiming he has excellent learning speed and Jujutsu understanding since Sukuna lived inside him, so he has a special grade property within him. Even Uraume implies the same thing, that within Yuji lies latent potential equal to the king. Bringing me to the most infamous student, Hakairi is a beast when it comes to curse energy and his technique. His strength has been foreshadowed right from chapter 11 itself, when Satoru freaking Gojo himself attested Hakairi had a bright future. Chapter 157 gave us a glimpse because Hakairi landed a barrage of punches on Yuji, which hurt him to an extreme level, regardless of how much or how little strength the senpai put into them. Itadori felt like Hakairi was hitting him with a baseball bat, with a saw-like edge instead of punches. This alone is a massive nod to Hakairi's strength, because Yuji is one of the most durable characters in the series, so for him to feel the brunt of Hakairi's punches meant there was some huge secret. And it didn't take Hakairi too long to let the cat out of the bag, as the key was his curse energy. According to Gojo, Hakairi's energy had an edge that was making his punches seem so harsh, because Yuji could handle the physical strength but not the curse energy hitting him. Even Bernard wondered how Hakairi's curse energy felt rough and hurt him like sandpaper. This fact definitely makes Hakairi much stronger in one-on-one battles, as he's also very agile. Hakairi's entire fight against Bernard, the manga artist, was proof of how he is excellent when it comes to physical capabilities. Firstly, this artist had the power to glimpse into the future, which would have been a massive problem for an average sorcerer. However, it didn't take Hakairi too long to find a way out of Bernard's ability, and that was to attack from his blind spots. To do this, Hakairi moved around Bernard swiftly enough that he lost sight of him and took a massive punch to the stomach. But all this aside, it is actually Hakairi's domain that makes him absolutely OP, and the reason why he is special grade. In short, this domain makes him nearly invincible. It's so powerful that it becomes evident why Yuta considers Hakairi stronger than him when he's fired up. So, how does it work? Hakairi's domain expansion, called Idle Death Gamble, is based on the pachinko system. It operates on probability, with even Hakairi himself uncertain if he will hit a jackpot. Now, unlike other domains, its guaranteed hit is harmless yet effective, as all rules are revealed to the enemy upon entry. Idle Death Gamble features 7 characters representing 7 numbers. The objective is to hit a jackpot by aligning 3 identical characters, similar to a lottery machine. When Hakairi hits the jackpot, he gains 2 overwhelming advantages. First, his body is replenished with any lost curse energy, but more importantly, for the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds, he has infinite curse energy flow, allowing him to subconsciously use the reverse curse technique to heal even fatal wounds instantly. This was shown to us in chapters 186 and 188. He can also subconsciously use reverse curse technique even though he has never learned it. This heals even fatal wounds like an arm, losing half his face, and even a freaking hole in his stomach. Running on automatic RCT allows him to nullify toxic gases and poison, just like in chapter 189, which is usually very difficult equal for somebody who uses RCT consciously. Second, each jackpot increases the probability of hitting another one, which means that as long as he keeps hitting them, he can continuously use his domain even within the same battle. So, let's take Gojo as an example. He had a limit of doing 5 domain expansions consecutively before his brain fried. Hikari, on the other hand, can do an unlimited amount of domains in a row if jackpot occurs, thus surpassing Sukuna himself, who had to do binding vows and use the other half of his brain to keep going. What truly makes this domain dangerous is that Hikari is unkillable. The fact that he stored Uruume since chapter 238 till the very end is amazing. During the Shibuya incident, Uruume was able to incapacitate over half of the sorcerers with ease, even putting their lives in danger by being able to freeze them to death until Yuki arrived to save the day. She did this again in chapter 215 against an awakened Maki, stopping her from fighting. But its true potential was shown against Hikari himself. Uruume froze his arm and leg to destroy them instantly, but realized something really huge. She claimed that sorcerers of the modern era maintain their humanity, which holds them back. But Hikari over here? He shouldn't be treated as human. Instead, she must use her full power, which entirely puts into context why Yuta would say he thinks Hikari may be stronger than him when he's hyped. Think about it. Sukuna has been fighting countless battles, including domain expansion that lasted 99 seconds and more. For Hikari to stall a special grade from the Golden Age for 10 minutes or longer, it's a feat in itself. We learn his healing factor is better than Gojo and Sukuna, which is insane considering that Gojo tanked Malevolent Shrine on purpose and only had shallow wounds. On the other hand, people like Yuji were losing limbs. This puts Hikari above anything we imagine, since he would lose body parts, but that wouldn't even matter in his domain expansion. On top of that, Kashimo confirmed that due to unlimited curse energy and each consecutive jackpot, Hikari's speed, power, and everything else keeps increasing. So defeating Kashimo in the Culling game earns him a lot of merit, as he's one of the most powerful sorcerers Kenjaku ever encountered in 1,000 years. Although he was saving his one-time technique for Sukuna, Kashimo admits running out of curse energy and loses. But another sorcerer who has joined the Special Grade Club is Higuruma. Even Sukuna himself acknowledged him by name.
Has anyone actually made it to level 4 before? If you're slightly congested, use level 1. If you find yourself mouth breathing or snoring at night,
and was fascinated with his potential, claiming it matches not only Gojo's, but his own. Higuruma's potential is showcased as early as chapter 164. Within 12 days of gaining curse energy, he was already comparable to a grade 1 sorcerer, like Nanami or Meimei. He faced Yuji without curse energy, where he claimed Higuruma was powerful and was being utterly destroyed. This is a post-Shibuya Yuji, whom is stronger than when Megami stated he is capable of destroying both schools at once without curse energy. Also, according to the author, a grade 1 is capable of killing special grade curse spirits. This led to Higuruma defeating multiple and killing over 20 Culling Game players on his own during a day at the Tokyo colony in the Culling Games. In fact, within those few days, he figured out the details of Jujutsu in such extreme detail without a teacher that he learned the most advanced form of Jujutsu, which is He did this by reverse engineering how casting barriers work in order to master control of curse energy, which even garnered the attention of Kenjaku, who claimed Higuruma was the only player he was interested in. This is because within 2 months, he also unlocked domain amplification by simply observing Gojo in the fight against Sukuna. Keep in mind, that's the most advanced form of nullification. Even Naobito was using something like Falling Blossom Emotion, or others having simple domains with binding vows. The disaster curses are all special grades, equal to numerous Sukuna fingers. So it's a no-brainer as to how insane this is. My guy learned to pause amplification and control it so that the executioner's sword would not disappear. This made Sukuna acknowledge that Higuruma wielded his technique almost as effectively as him. Another reason he was special grade was his genius intellect, allowing him to learn reverse curse technique on the spot when the king forced him to regenerate an arm and leg. This is another feat equal to Satoru freaking Gojo, who learnt it on the verge of death against Toji. But let's get to arguably one of the best domain expansions, as it guarantees death if you are found guilty. Confiscation disallows the use of curse techniques or curse energy depending on the target. However, Higuruma's inexperience caused him to overlook one of the rules, as it prioritizes curse tools, which made it confiscate Sukuna's Kumatake tool instead of his technique, jeopardizing their plan. But they still have the death penalty, which grants the executioner's sword that could kill the likes of Sukuna or even Gojo in one hit. Anyone, and I mean anyone, cut by it immediately dies. It can be given to others to utilize whilst in battle. So imagine if Gojo was given it in a fight. It would be over in 0.2 seconds thanks to his instant teleportation. Even though Higuruma reached Gojo's level in some areas, his lack of experience due to only being a sorcerer for 2 months is what stopped him from becoming the most powerful of all. If given time, his power, speed, and endurance would be even greater to reach a degree where no one will be able to dodge a single hit from the executioner blade. However, next up is someone opposite to Higuruma's serious nature. In fact, he's a complete joke. Takaba. When the story claimed his power rivals Satoru Gojo, they weren't lying. Takaba can do.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you
do the impossible just like the strongest. He survived numerous bombings from Hazinoki and healed from the injuries he suffered without a reverse curse technique. But he's also capable of saving people's lives. We learned Takaba being nearby saved Angel, which resulted in Hana learning the truth about his curse technique. He also saved Megami's life in chapter 169, where Reggie stated his curse energy increased dramatically, the shift in its output being massive enough to outspeed them and win the battle. This is where they declared Takaba as strong, where by the end, Megami claimed he was glad Takaba isn't their enemy. But you know who isn't glad? Kenjaku. Median is a reality-breaking power, which made him admit he could lose. Takaba's technique makes anything he considers funny become a reality. So let's say he thinks Kenjaku turning into a cat is hilarious, he can make that happen. But the materialization of imagination isn't limited to his own force. Kenjaku realized it could also impact the opponent's mind, where even he didn't realize what he was saying when complimenting Takaba on his sorry. In fact, Comedian has soul resonance. This means the soul of the opponent is being affected by the external force of it, which is more insane than you think, as he could take on opponents like Mahito and Sukuna, who would have trouble against Comedian since the soul cannot be protected. Plus, it's a major boost in points for Takaba to reach special grade, since it is a lot harder to directly attack the soul for regular sorcerers and is a rare ability. His curse technique is so overpowered that Kenjaku's special grade spirits have no effect on him and are defeated instantly, like in chapter 242. These are feats equal to other monsters such as Yuki, who killed the Asian deity, and even Gojo. Keep in mind, the smallpox deity's special grade in chapter 101 put Mei's life life in danger, and then she required help. She's a great one, and Gojo stated she's strong. However, as you can tell by this point in the video, Gojo's compliments would be given to all of these guys. Because in chapter 239, we see Kenjaku feeling something he has never had before in 1,000 years. His attack was forced not to work and nullified, meaning all of his experience was meaningless. Takaba forces his opponents to play by his rules, but Kenjaku realizes the only way their fight would end is if he agrees to do Manzai with Takaba. The events are simulations, but all the damage dealt to him
You wanna know what makes it?
will accumulate steadily, whilst Takaba takes no damage from anything, which means even Sukuna's cleave and dismantle would not affect Takaba, whilst his comedian technique is active. This is huge coming from Kenjaku because this guy tanked an entire black hole and called it a warmer, whilst Takaba has officially lasted longer than Yuki, who was a special grade. Now, unfortunately, Takaba limits his power. He could destroy Kenjaku by saying something like, "It would be funny if he died." But his entire goal here is to make Kenjaku laugh instead. After all, comedian activates if Takaba's confidence and conviction are high in his jokes. This resulted in Kenjaku using facts and logic to break his spirit, which resulted in Takaba taking damage. Plus, in chapter 240, after seeing a dead body, his core was shaken and he lost his power. However, even though Kenjaku set up detectives to find Yuta, Takaba wanted no interruptions during their fight, which blocked off his thoughts and Kurt's energy detection of others. Takaba doesn't kill, which is why Yuta stepped in. But based on this one fight alone, Takaba is clearly above the special grade ranking. Which brings me to someone that didn't show up for a while but came back overpowered. In chapter 132, when Mahito hit Odo with idol transfiguration, we thought his career was over. I mean, Odo himself said Boogie Boogie was dead, and Gege pretty much forgot to bring Yuji's besto friendo back for 3 whole years. But now, his comeback in chapter 259 is generational.
Long time no see. You're alive. I'm alive, he says.
It was revealed that this was all part of the Sorcerer team's plan to gain an advantage in battle against Sukuna, because Todo's Boogie Woogie was far from done and dusted. With his 530,000 IQ, Todo not only brought it back, but also made it so OP that it instantly had Sukuna quaking in his boots. After all, this thing, called the Vibra Slap, is what makes Todo a special grade sorcerer.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Let me explain. Previously, Todo's Boogie Woogie technique required a clap to swap anything infused with Kurt's energy, allowing only a single swap at a time. The technique's effectiveness was primarily due to Todo's extraordinary creativity and high IQ despite its limited range. However, Todo has now changed the trigger to be the collision of metal pieces and a wooden box. Just imagine how often the beads in a shaker collide. And now envision Todo using Boogie Woogie with each sound, which means he can now use his curse technique 50 times per second. To put it into perspective, even special grade curses like Anemi or Mahito couldn't keep up with the basic version of Boogie Woogie, which tells us that this upgrade is a nightmare. So thanks to the Vibra Slap, Todo formed a roulette of sorts by swapping himself, Yuji, and Sukuna as they continuously switch places. It is literally impossible to keep track whilst fighting off attacks, even for Sukuna himself. Although this technique isn't offensive, the fact that it's so hard to keep up with makes Sukuna comment that this was the worst time for Todo to show up, because he is very self-centered, as it is extremely hard to destabilize his pace in a fight. Now, at this point of the video, you've probably can't tell by now. The power scaling of Jujutsu Kaisen is so insane because landing
What if I told you this dish was actually healthy? Let's be real, Factor's menu is way healthier than the competition. Their chefs actually know what they're doing. Every meal is balanced and built to support my goals. I needed high-protein meals that aren't bland or boring.
Single attack on 20-finger Hayanara Sakuna already puts you at the upper echelons. Even at 15 fingers, no one dares to move an inch against him. Hell, even Jogger couldn't hit a single punch. But Odo trained just like everyone else to boost his stats within the 1 month time skip, which allowed him to land a huge kick to Sakuna's face and more. This is all achieved through his upgraded technique. When Sakuna tried to blast everyone in his furnace, Odo was capable of rescuing everyone. He could expand the range of his technique and replace all sorcerers inside Sakuna's domain with Yumi's crows. Vibra Slap causes hundreds of collisions every time Odo strikes the wooden bank. He could theoretically perform just as many swats per second. However, he limited this to only 50 to create a binding vow that traded the higher number of swats for a larger range and the ability to target multiple individuals. So, despite Furnace's massive fire blast in the Malevolent Shrine, Odo expanded his technique to cover the area and made such a huge substitution without Sukuna even noticing. Beforehand, as a grade 1, Odo fought against 5 grade 1 cursed spirits and a special grade all at the same time, but only uses his technique against special grade cursed spirits. Mind you, he beat all of them at the same time and was even strong enough to hurt Hanami, whose defense scaled the highest out of the disaster curses. He can also do Black Flash to an extent which unleashes 120% of his potential, which means he's more proficient at it than others, and can also deal with domain expansions since he has simple domain just like the others. But now he's facing the strongest of all time, where the power, speed, and defense is not a problem for him to have a role in the fight, unlike an actual grade 1, such as Ino, who he puts himself. This is way out of my league. For someone on my level, I think I did a pretty good job. So there's no